Picture this. Steam rises from puddles of unidentifiable liquid on rusted metal walkways. The air tastes like copper and desperation. Welcome to Sector 9, the forgotten slums of Kepler Station, where alien refugees cling to survival in the shadows of humanity's greatest achievement. Dr. Elian Marr pulls his hood lower as he navigates through the maze of makeshift stalls. Every face here tells a story of displacement of worlds lost to corporate expansion. But Marr isn't here for charity work. He's hunting for something far more valuable than credits. He's searching for the last fragments of dying languages. The crowd parts around him like he's carrying plague. Fair enough, most humans avoid this sector. Too dirty, too dangerous, too real. But Marr has learned that the most precious treasures are always found in the places others refuse to look. That's when he sees her. Crammed into the narrow space between two food stalls, a young woman sits motionless. Her blue-tinted skin marks her as Velari, but that's impossible. The Velari homeworld was glassed 3 years ago. Corporate records list the entire species as extinct. Yet here she is breathing in slow, deliberate patterns that make the hair on Marr's neck stand up. Because he recognizes those patterns. Not as breathing, but as language itself. The girl's clothes are torn, however, her face bruised. Local kids throw scraps at her like she's some kind of street decoration. She doesn't react, just keeps breathing those same rhythmic sequences. Other refugees give her a wide berth, whispering about bad luck and ghosts. Marr approaches slowly. The last thing he wants is to spook her. When he's close enough, he removes his thermal-lined coat and holds it out. The girl's eyes meet his for the first time. They're silver like mercury and absolutely ancient in a face that can't be older than 20. She doesn't take the coat, doesn't even blink. But those breathing patterns shift slightly, becoming more complex. Marr's heart races. He's studied dead languages his entire career, but this is different. This is a living linguistic system hiding in plain sight. He clears his throat and attempts something he learned from old archive recordings. A simple Velari greeting, spoken not with words, but with controlled exhalation. The pattern is clumsy, he's probably wrong, but the effect is immediate. The girl's head snaps up. Those silver eyes widen. For a moment, the entire sector seems to hold its breath. Well, well, comes a gravelly voice behind them. Doc Marr making friends with the locals. A Kethani vendor, 3 arms crossed, grins with too many teeth. That one's been sit there for weeks, brain dead most likely, though I suppose she'd make decent furniture if you're into that sort of thing. Marr's jaw tightens, but he keeps his voice level. Actually, I'm claiming salvage rights under Preservation Protocol 77 Alpha. Linguistic artifact recovery. It's a stretch of an obscure regulation, but it might work. The vendor's expression shifts. Salvage rights are serious business on Kepler Station. You're a funeral doc, but once you claim her, she's your problem. The girl still hasn't moved, but Marr swears he can see the faintest hint of hope in those silver eyes. Marr's quarters are crammed, even by station standards. Recycled air, humming processors, and walls lined with data tablets containing the linguistic remnants of a dozen dead civilizations. Not exactly welcoming, but it's home. The girl Sarah, as he learns when she traces the letters in the condensation on his viewport, sits perfectly still in the corner chair. She's accepted the coat now, wrapped it around herself like armor. Every few minutes she speaks those breathing patterns into the fabric, as if testing whether the words still work. Marr gives her space. He's dealt with traumatized refugees before. Pushed too hard and they disappear back into the maze of the station's underlevels. Instead, he goes about his normal routine. Reviewing linguistic data, cross-referencing pronunciation guides, making notes in his journal with an actual pen, because some things are too important to trust to digital storage. After an hour, Sarah moves for the first time. She approaches his desk, those silver eyes scanning the scattered papers. When she sees the Velari syntax charts, her breathing shifts again. This time the patterns are corrective. She's fixing his pronunciation. Marr's hands shake as he reaches for his recorder. This could be the linguistic discovery of the century, but when he activates the device, Sarah flinches and retreats to her corner. The patterns stop immediately. Message received. No digital recording. Whatever secrets she carries, they stay analog or not at all. So Marr does something he hasn't done since graduate school. He starts taking notes by hand, trying to capture the subtle rhythms of a language that was supposedly dead and buried. Sarah watches him work, and gradually those breathing patterns resume. Softer now, more trusting. Neither of them notices the security alert that flashes briefly on Marr's terminal. Someone has just flagged his biosignature for suspicious activity in Sector 9. Someone who remembers Dr. Elian Marr from his previous life before he became a collector of dead languages. Someone who knows exactly why he really left the linguistic warfare division. The door chime breaks the careful quiet that Marr and Sarah have built over the past few hours. Marr's assistant, Kira Chen, bursts in with her usual energy arms full of equipment, requisition forms, and coffee that smells like it was brewed in an engine compartment. Dr. Marr, I've got the new translation matrices from the university, and you're not going to believe what they're asking for the neural interface upgrades they want. Kira stops mid-sentence when she sees Sarah. The young woman has gone perfectly still, and in those silver eyes tracking Kira's every movement. For a moment, the two women simply stare at each other. Kira, 23 years old, with the kind of restless intelligence that made her indispensable to Marr's research, and Sarah, whose age is impossible to determine, but whose gaze holds the weight of civilizations. Kira says eloquently. Hello. Sarah responds with a soft breathing pattern. 3 quick exhales followed by a longer one. Kira's eyebrows rise. Did she just say hello back? Marr nods. Kira meets Sarah. Sarah, this is Kira. He pauses, realizing how to explain their relationship. She helps me find lost words. That gets Sarah's attention. She tilts her head, studying Kira with new interest. When Kira was 15, her family's transport was attacked by raiders. She spent 2 years in refugee camps before making it to Kepler Station. If anyone understands displacement, it's her. Kira sets down her equipment and approaches slowly, hands visible. I like your breathing patterns, she says. They're not just random, are they? There's data encoded in the rhythm variations. Sarah's eyes widen. She glances at Marr, then back at Kira, and for the first time since he found her, she speaks. Not with breath patterns, but with actual words. Her voice is rough from disuse, accented with sounds that human vocal cords aren't designed to make. You understand rhythm speech? Kira grins. I understand that information wants to be preserved, and I'm really good with patterns. What happens next changes everything Marr thought he knew about language preservation. Sarah doesn't just speak. She becomes a living archive, her voice weaving together fragments of Velari history that were supposed to be lost forever. She tells them about the breath keepers, Velari scholars, who encoded their entire cultural memory into respiratory patterns. Not written language, not digital storage, but something far more intimate. Something that lived in the spaces between heartbeats, in the rhythm of life itself. Your people, Sarah says, her accent growing stronger as emotion takes hold. They hunted us for sport at first. Then they realized we carried something valuable. Memory songs that couldn't be copied, couldn't be stolen. Only passed from breath to breath, generation to generation. Kira is frantically scribbling notes, trying to capture not just the words, but the breathing patterns that accompany them. Marr watches fascinated as his assistant's engineering mind tackles the linguistic puzzle. She's mapping the correlations between emotional content and respiratory rhythm, building a translation matrix in real time. The collectors came with machines, Sarah continues. They tried to record us to digitize the breath songs, but the songs died the moment they touched technology. So they caged us instead, made us perform like trained animals. The temperature in the room seems to drop. Marr recognizes the signs of deep trauma, but he also recognizes something else. The breathing patterns aren't random emotional responses. They're teaching tools. Sarah is deliberately demonstrating different encoding techniques with each memory she shares. How long were you caged? Kira asked gently. 7 cycles, local time. Sarah's silver eyes focus on something beyond the walls. I was the youngest breath keeper when they took our world. The others, the eldest speakers, they chose silence rather than performance. One by one, they stopped breathing. Marr's chest tightens. He knows about choosing silence, about the weight of words that can become weapons. But you survived, he says. I escaped during a transport, hid among the refugees. Sarah's voice drops to barely a whisper. The last speaker of the last song, sitting in alien filth, watching my language die with me. The words hang in the recycled air like an accusation. Here in this cramped quarters filled with the remnants of dead civilizations sits the final repository of an entire culture. And until today, she was prepared to take it all to her grave. Kira looks up from her notes. Not anymore. We're going to help you preserve everything. But Sarah, we need to do this carefully. If word gets out that you're here, that you're the last... She doesn't finish the sentence. They all know what happens to the last of anything valuable. Museums pay well for extinct specimens. 3 hours into their work session, Marr's past finally catches up with him. It starts with a simple question from Sarah asked in that matter-of-fact way that cuts straight through deception. Dr. Marr, why do you collect dead languages? Kira glances up sharply. In the 2 years she's worked with him, Marr has never given a straight answer to that question. He deflects with academic jargon or changes the subject entirely. But something about Sarah's directness, the weight of her own losses, makes evasion impossible. Because I helped kill them, he says quietly. The admission hangs in the air like a live wire. Kira's stylus freezes halfway through a notation. Sarah's breathing patterns shift to something Marr doesn't recognize, something that feels like listening mixed with judgment. I worked, though, for the Linguistic Warfare Division. Marr continues the words, scraping his throat raw. We developed syntax weapons, linguistic viruses that could corrupt communication networks, turn enemy transmissions into gibberish. It was elegant work, precise, supposedly humane. Supposedly, Sarah repeats. The weapon I designed, it was meant to disrupt military communications during the border conflicts. Clean, surgical, temporary. Marr's hands clench. But my sister Nayel, she modified it, enhanced it, turned it into something that could rewrite linguistic memory permanently. Kira sets down her stylus entirely. Dr. Marr, what did it do? It didn't just scramble communications. It attacked the language centers of the brain, made it impossible for affected populations to speak, to think in their native tongues. Entire colonies went linguistically silent overnight. Children forgot their mother's lullabies. Elders lost the ability to tell stories. Sarah's silver eyes narrow. How many worlds? 7. The number tastes like ash. 7 worlds where ancient languages just stopped. The people survived, but their cultural memory died. Just like that. The silence stretches until Sarah breaks it with a sound Marr has never heard before. A breathing pattern so complex, so layered with meaning, that it takes him a moment to realize it's the Velari equivalent of profound sadness mixed with understanding. Your sister, Sarah says, where is she now? Dead, killed herself when she realized what her improvement had done. Left me a note saying that some words once spoken can never be taken back. Kira reaches out her hand, hovering near Marr's shoulder, but not quite touching. Is that why you left the division? I left because I realized that destroying a language is worse than murder. When you kill a person, you end one life. When you kill a language, you erase the collective memory of everyone who ever spoke it, past, present, and future. Sarah nods slowly. And now you try to save what's left. Now I try to save what's left, Marr agrees. Though sometimes I wonder if I'm just collecting trophies of my own crimes. The words settle between them like a bridge being built. 3 people carrying the weight of their separate losses and finding common ground in the rubble of destroyed civilizations. That's when Kira's tablet chimes with an incoming priority alert. She glances at the screen and goes pale. Marr, we have a problem. Station security just flagged your quarters for unregistered alien presence. They're sending an inspection team. Through the viewport, the distant lights of Kepler Station's security sector pulse with new urgency. Someone knows about Sarah, someone who understands exactly what she represents. How long do we have? Marr asks. Maybe 20 minutes if we're lucky. Sarah stands, wrapping Marr's coat tighter around herself. Then we run. The maintenance tunnels beneath Kepler Station are a maze of humming conduits and forgotten access ways. Perfect for staying invisible, terrible for moving quickly. Marr leads the way, his tablet's emergency protocols guiding them through the safest route to the outer sectors. Behind them, the sound of security boots echoes through the main corridors. Professional, systematic, closing in. This is Enforcement Team Alpha, a voice crackles over the station's communication system. We have reports of contraband biological materials in Sector 12. All residents are advised to cooperate with inspection procedures. Kira snorts. Contraband biological materials. They make her sound like a virus sample. Maybe I am, Sarah says. The comment is meant to be dark humor, but there's real pain underneath. A plague of extinct culture spreading through your nice, clean station. They reach a junction where 3 tunnels converge. Marr checks his tablet, frowning. This should lead to the freight loading docks, but the schematic is showing a blockage ahead. Not a blockage, comes a familiar voice from the shadows. An old friend. Commander Torres steps into the weak lighting, her uniform crisp despite the industrial setting. Marr's blood runs cold. Torres was his liaison back in the linguistic warfare division. She knows exactly what he's capable of and exactly why he left. Hello, Elian. Still collecting strays, I see. Carmen, Marr keeps his voice steady. You're a long way from division headquarters. Funny thing about extinct species, they have a way of not staying extinct. Torres's eyes lock onto Sarah, who has gone absolutely still, especially when they're carrying state secrets in their pretty little heads. She's not carrying anything. She's a refugee. She's a walking linguistic weapon, Elian, and you of all people should understand the implications. Torres steps closer, her hand resting casually on her sidearm. The breath-speech technology the Velari developed. It's biological encryption that can't be cracked, can't be copied, can't be hacked. Do you have any idea what the military applications are worth? Kira shifts nervously. She's a person, not a technology. She's the last repository of an extinct communication system, Torres corrects, which makes her the most valuable intelligence asset in human space. The division wants her back, Elian, alive and talking. Sarah finally speaks, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. I will not perform for your division. I will not breathe weapons into existence. Oh, sweetheart, Torres says with mock sympathy. You don't get a choice, do you? The security team emerges from their connecting tunnels, weapons drawn but not aimed. Yet, professional courtesy for a former colleague, but Marr knows it won't last long. Let her go, Carmen. Take me instead. I'm the one who created the original syntax weapon. I can give you everything the division wants to know. Torres laughs. Elian, your work was brilliant but outdated. This little bird here represents a completely new paradigm. Living language that adapts, evolves, resists conventional analysis. She's not just the last speaker of Velari, she's the future of linguistic warfare. That's when Sarah does something unexpected. She begins to speak in rapid, complex breathing patterns, but not in Velari. These are human respiratory rhythms learned from weeks of listening to Marr and Kira work together. She's encoding their escape route in breath speech right under Torres's nose. Marr catches the message immediately. Kira takes a moment longer, but her engineering mind pieces it together. There's a service shaft directly above them, hidden by the shadows. Old maintenance access from the station's original construction. Carmen, Marr says, taking a step forward to draw Torres's attention. Do you remember why Nael killed herself? The commander's expression flickers. She knew Marr's sister, worked with her on the enhanced syntax weapon, because she realized that some things are too dangerous to exist. Marr continues. Some knowledge is too destructive to preserve. While Torres is distracted, Sarah and Kira move, not toward the tunnels, but up. The service shaft access panel gives way to Kira's emergency override codes. One by one, they disappear into the darkness above. Damn it, Elian, Torres snaps. You're making the same mistake your sister did. Some knowledge is too valuable to lose. No, Marr says, backing toward the shaft. Some people are too valuable to sacrifice. He's halfway up the ladder when Torres gives the order to fire. The energy blast sears past Marr's shoulder, leaving the scent of scorched metal in the cramped service shaft. Above him, Sarah and Kira are already moving through the maze of forgotten maintenance tunnels that honeycomb Kepler Station's superstructure. Emergency exit ahead. Kira whispers, her tablet casting ghostly shadows on the corroded walls. Leads to the civilian observation deck. Once we're there, Torres can't risk firing into a crowd. They crawl single file through decades of accumulated dust and cable runs. Behind them, Torres's voice echoes through the tunnels, coordinating search teams, turning the station into a hunting ground. But up here in the forgotten arteries of humanity's greatest achievement, They have precious minutes to breathe. That's when Sarah breaks the silence with a question that cuts deeper than any energy weapon. Dr. Marr, why do you risk everything for me? You could give Commander Torres what she wants. Tell her about the breath patterns you've learned. Trade my knowledge for your freedom. Marr pauses, dust motes dancing in the tablet's pale glow. It's a fair question, a logical one, the kind of cold calculation that would have made perfect sense back when he was designing weapons instead of preserving voices. 3 years ago, he says finally, I was documenting the aftermath on Hadley's World. The syntax weapon had hit them hard. An entire colony of poets and storytellers reduced to pointing and grunting. His voice catches. But I found this old woman, maybe 80 years old, sitting alone in a refugee camp. Sarah's breathing shifts into what Marr recognizes as a listening pattern, encouraging him to continue. She couldn't speak anymore, couldn't even remember her own name. But when I played recordings of pre-attack poetry from her world, she started crying. Not tears of sadness, joy, recognition. For just a moment, the language lived again in her eyes, even though she could never speak it again. The tunnel grows quieter as they move away from their pursuers. Kira's tablet shows they're approaching the civilian sectors, but she doesn't interrupt Marr's confession. That day I realized I wasn't just collecting dead languages. I was carrying the ghosts of everyone who had been silenced. Their jokes, their prayers, their lullabies. All of it was still alive, waiting for someone to give it breath again. Sarah responds with a complex breathing pattern that Marr is beginning to understand means profound gratitude mixed with something deeper. Forgiveness, maybe. Or recognition of a kindred spirit. You carry your own ghost too, she says softly. Your sister's voice. The words she spoke that became weapons. Every day, but maybe that's the point. Maybe the dead only stay dead if we stop listening for them. They reach the emergency exit and Kira's override codes work flawlessly. Fresh air and civilian lighting flood the shaft as they emerge onto the observation deck. Around them, normal station life continues. Families watching merchant ships dock through massive viewports. Vendors hawking coffee and souvenir data chips. The contrast with their underground chase feels surreal. What now? Kira asks, checking her tablet for security alerts. Marr looks at Sarah, really looks at Pear. She's covered in dust, exhausted, carrying the cultural weight of an entire extinct species. But those silver eyes burn with a determination that reminds him why languages survive impossible odds. Because someone refuses to let them die. Now we stop running, he says. Now we make some noise. The observation deck's central platform was designed for tourist announcements and ceremonial arrivals. Right now it's mostly empty except for a few off-duty workers grabbing lunch and families watching the traffic flow through Kepler Station's busy shipping lanes. Perfect for what Marr has in mind. Sarah, he says, how long would it take to teach someone basic Velari greetings? For humans, perhaps 10 minutes if they have good at respiratory control. Why? Because we're about to make your language immortal. Sarah's eyes widen as she grasps his plan. Marr, if I speak publicly, every collector and weapons developer in human space will know exactly where to find me. Exactly. They'll also discover that you're not the last speaker anymore. The plan is audacious in its simplicity. Instead of hiding Sarah like a precious artifact, they're going to prove that Velari can be taught shared passed from one generation to the next. They're going to demonstrate that extinction only happens when the last teacher stops teaching. Marr climbs onto the platform first, his voice carrying across the deck, with the authority of someone who spent years lecturing to university students. Citizens of Kepler Station, I'm Dr. Elian Marr, xenolinguist, and former researcher with the Linguistic Warfare Division. 3 years ago, corporate reports declared the Velari species extinct following the destruction of their homeworld. Today I'm here to tell you that reports of their death have been greatly exaggerated. Curious faces turn toward them. Data recorders activate. The inevitable security guards begin moving closer, drawn by reports of unauthorized public speaking. In the distance, Marr spots Torres and her team emerging from the emergency access points, weapons ready but useless in a crowd of civilians. With me is Sarah, the last traditional keeper of the Velari language. But more importantly, she's about to become the first teacher of a new generation of Velari speakers. Sarah steps onto the platform, those silver eyes scanning the growing crowd. Fear flickers across her face for just a moment. Then she sees Kira climbing up beside her tableau, ready to provide support, and the fear transforms into something else entirely: pride. My people believe that languages die when they stop being spoken. Sarah begins her accent, making the words sound like music. But we also believe that languages live forever as long as someone is willing to learn. She takes a deep breath and begins demonstrating the basic patterns of Velari greeting speech. Simple, controlled inhalations and exhalations that carry meaning beyond mere words. The crowd watches fascinated as this exotic stranger teaches them to speak with breath itself. Kira joins in, her human pronunciation clumsy but enthusiastic. "Hello," she breathes in broken Velari. "Welcome, friend." The effect is electric. People in the crowd start mimicking the patterns, turning the observation deck into an impromptu language class. Children pick up the rhythms faster than adults, their delighted laughter mixing with the whoosh of coordinated breathing exercises. That's when Torres arrives with her security detail, energy weapons drawn but utterly useless against a crowd of civilians learning to speak an extinct language. "Stand down immediately, Dr. Marr," Torres calls out. "You're harboring a classified linguistic asset." Sarah's response carries across the deck in perfect, resonant breath speech that needs no translation. Every person in the crowd understands the meaning, even without knowing the individual components. "I am not an asset," she declares. "I am a teacher." What happens next is something Torres never anticipated in all her division training. Something no tactical manual prepared her for. The crowd doesn't scatter when the weapons appear. They don't panic or run for emergency exits. They keep learning. An elderly Kathani merchant attempts the basic greeting pattern, his three-chambered respiratory system, creating harmonics that make the Velari words sound like a celestial chorus. A group of human teenagers turns the lesson into a rhythm game, clapping along with the breathing patterns like it's the latest viral trend. A maintenance worker removes her helmet and joins in her mechanical vocal implants, adapting the breath speech for her augmented throat. In the span of 15 minutes, Velari transforms from a dead language into a living phenomenon spreading through the crowd like wildfire. And Torres knows she can't stop it without creating the kind of public relations disaster that ends military careers. "You brilliant son of a bitch," she mutters, though there's grudging admiration beneath her frustration. Sarah continues teaching, her confidence growing with every new student. She demonstrates how breath speech conveys emotion, how different rhythms encode various types of information, how the language adapts naturally to each speaker's unique respiratory patterns. This isn't just a linguistics lesson. It's a cultural renaissance happening in real time. "Dr. Marr." A new voice cuts through the crowd. Captain Elena Thorne, pilot of the independent freighter Sanctuary, pushes through the gathered civilians. Marr recognizes her from university contacts, someone who's built a reputation transporting refugees to safer harbors. "Captain Thorne, remarkable timing. I was monitoring station security frequencies when I heard about the commotion. Figured you might need transportation to somewhere with fewer military complications." Torres steps forward, her hand resting on her sidearm. "Captain, I strongly advise against interfering with division operations." "What operations?" Thorne asks with practiced innocence. "I see a linguistics professor conducting a cultural demonstration for willing participants. Last I checked, education wasn't a military concern." The crowd has swollen to nearly 200 people now, all attempting Velari breath of speech with varying degrees of success. Station news feeds are broadcasting the event live. Social media algorithms are spreading recordings across human space faster than Torres can track them. In trying to capture the last speaker of Velari, she's inadvertently created thousands of new ones. Commander Torres, Marr says, "You have a choice: arrest 200 civilians for the crime of learning a language, or walk away and pretend this never happened." Torres's jaw clenches. She recognizes defeat when it's staring her in the face, but she won't go quietly. "This isn't finished, Elian. The division will find other methods to acquire what they need. Perhaps, but they'll have to go through a lot of new Velari speakers first." The security team reluctantly withdraws, but Torres delivers one final warning. "Some languages are weapons, Elian. Some knowledge should stay buried. All knowledge is dangerous, Carmen. That's exactly what makes it worth preserving." 2 hours later, as the crowd finally begins to disperse, Sarah sits on the platform's edge with her legs dangling over the side. Her silver eyes reflect the stars visible through the massive observation windows. And for the first time since Marr found her in those slums, she looks genuinely peaceful. In the ancient stories, she says our breathkeepers taught that languages could be reborn if they found the right soil to grow in. I never understood what that meant until today. Kira is busy uploading linguistic files to secure academic servers, creating backup copies of everything they've documented. The university response is incredible. This will be the first recorded resurrection of a completely extinct language in human history. Not resurrection, Sarah corrects gently. Evolution. The Velari being spoken here tonight isn't identical to my homeworld's version. Your human lungs that three-chambered Kathani, the woman with mechanical vocal cords. Each speaker changes the language simply by using it. Marr nods. That's what makes it alive again. Living languages adapt to survive. Captain Thorne approaches with emergency travel documents and a packed supply bag. I've got departure clearance in 20 minutes. Where are we headed? Halvar Colony. Marr responds immediately. They maintain a cultural preservation institute there, and more importantly, their outside division jurisdiction. Plus, Kira adds with growing excitement, they operate one of the finest linguistic universities in human space. Think they'd be interested in establishing the first formal Velari language program. Sarah's laugh sounds like music full of possibilities that didn't exist this morning. A proper school for breath, speech. My grandmother would have been amazed. As they prepare to depart, Sarah does something unexpected. She carefully removes a small ribbon from her hair blue fabric that shimmers with an almost metallic sheen. With deliberate ceremony, she ties it to one of the platform's support railings. What's that for? Kira asks curiously. A promise, Sarah explains. In Velari tradition, when we leave a place that has shown us unexpected kindness, we leave something of ourselves behind, so the kindness can continue growing. They gather their few possessions and head toward the docking bay where Thorne's ship waits. Behind them, the small blue ribbon flutters in Kepler Station's recycled atmosphere, a tiny reminder that some extinctions can be reversed with enough determination and the courage to share breath with strangers. 4 months later, aboard the Sanctuary as it approaches Halvar Colony's orbital space, Sarah sits at a compact desk, writing in a notebook with genuine paper and an ink. The pages overflow with breathing pattern notations, linguistic diagrams, and careful documentation of a language learning to live again. Velari Cultural Archive, Volume 1. She writes at the top of a fresh page. Maintained by Sarah of the Breathkeepers and the Human Language Preservation Society. Marr watches from across the small cabin, his own journal open to a letter he's been composing to his dead sister. You would have loved meeting her, Nael, he writes. She's transforming the weapon you feared into something beautiful instead. Kira bursts through the door with her characteristic energy arms loaded with data tablets and communication equipment. The university response is beyond incredible. They're not just offering research positions. They want to establish an entire department of extinct language revival. And Sarah, you've got 53 students pre-enrolled for breath speech class before we even touch ground. Sarah looks up from her writing, silver eyes bright with wonder. 53 people. 54 now. I just officially registered myself as a student. The three of them sit in comfortable silence, processing the magnitude of what they've accomplished. A language that was supposed to remain dead forever is now being taught in universities, discussed in academic journals, and practiced by refugees who understand what it means to lose your voice and find it again. Dr. Marr, Sarah asks eventually, what will you do once we reach Halvar? Keep learning, he says simply. Keep listening. Keep helping people rediscover their voices. And the division. Let them develop their weapons. We'll be busy creating something far more powerful. Which is, Marr closes his journal and smiles. Teachers. That the sanctuary's engines shift as they enter Halvar's orbital approach. Through the viewport, the colony's cities spread across continents that have never experienced warfare, where refugee species from throughout human space have built new communities and fresh hopes for the future. Ready to establish the first interspecies language academy in the galaxy, Kira asks. Sarah stands and moves to the viewport, her reflection ghost-like against the starfield. When she speaks, it's in breath, speech, but the words are so clear that Marr and Kira understand without needing translation. Not an academy, she says, a sanctuary, a place where dying languages come to live again. The ship descends through Halvar's atmosphere carrying three souls who understand that the most powerful weapon against extinction isn't force or preservation or protection. It's the simple revolutionary act of teaching someone else to speak. As the landing sequence begins, Sarah returns to her notebook and writes one final entry for the day. Today I learned that humans are not the destroyers of languages. They are gardeners. They plant words in new soil and watch them grow into entire forests. Below them, Halvar Colony spreads out like a promise. A place where breath speech will be taught alongside poetry, where extinct languages will learn to live again, where the last speakers become the first teachers of something entirely new. And in the space between extinction and evolution, three voices continue weaving stories that refuse to be forgotten. The future is written in breath patterns now. And for the first time in years, Sarah knows her people's words will outlive the stars themselves. If this story touched something deep inside you, if it made you think about the languages we've lost and the voices still waiting to be heard, then I need you to do something important. Hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling me what languages or cultural traditions you think deserve to be preserved. Because every voice matters, every story deserves to be told. And sometimes the most powerful act of rebellion is simply refusing to let something beautiful disappear forever. Your engagement helps stories like this reach more people who need to hear them. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next adventure. He's halfway up the ladder when Torres gives the order to fire.